Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like the Cardinal rotation, has a right-hander with a questionable mustache. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Ben Samorka.
Who wrote that one?
We'll get to it. If you have an idea for the opening bit, text or leave us a voicemail at 848-48-BIRDS. And thank you to Charlie for that opening bit. Last week, I threw down the gauntlet on if anyone could come up with one that incorporates insulting our dear Hambone here. And I have to say, gauntlet thrown, gauntlet met. Thank you, Charlie. Ben is a right-hander with a questionable mustache. It definitely doesn't also include me.
Thanks, Charlie.
So he sent that in via email, so you can text, you can call, you can email. I love hearing it from the listeners. If you have ideas for these opening bits, again, best if it includes roasting Ben. Try not to also include me in that. Like, ideally, it's just something that roasts Ben and not me. Although I recognize that demographically, comedic, we're almost the exact same person in a lot of ways. So you gotta find you gotta find a narrow you gotta find a narrow niche to make fun of Ben and not me. Okay, great. All right.
Yeah, I'm not responding to you. Move on.
All right, thanks Hambone, or thanks Charlie for that opening.
Hey Charlie.
Hey Charlie. Hambone, I had a sporting event. What am I trying to say? I was unexpectedly invited to go to a Blues game last night.
Hey, I'm going to an Avs game tonight.
Wow.
Hockey.
A friend of ours just had a big birthday, and his wife put together like a surprise party thing at a suite at the Enterprise Center, and it was a lot of fun. I have not been to a Blues game in probably like 15 years. I like the Blues as much as the next. Like, I like to support St. Louis sports, and like I'm absolutely the typical like fair weather fan type guy. Like, I watched most of the 2019 playoffs and whatnot. So, I like to support it in that regard, but I've just never been a big hockey fan specifically. So it's been kind of hard for me to get into it. But I've always said I can enjoy any live sporting event. And it was a lot of fun. And being in the suite was pretty fun too. We had like, they had like food and stuff provided. Friend of the show, Brandon, was there. He kept trying to protect me from the hot cheese, and which I appreciated. So I left unburned.
I didn't know that you required like a handler for.
Well, I didn't think so either. But he listens to the show and was there to make sure that I did not burn myself on the hot cheese. And
it's a good man. A fine man, actually. I'll say that.
Yeah, the Blues won 7-2, which was wild. At one point, it was 7-0.
Wow.
They got some like garbage. I mean, almost the entire game was garbage time as far as the game goes. Like the team was, they were up 4-0 in the first like 15 minutes, and then but that was kind of fun just to see like an absolute crushing of the other team, and overall it was a cool experience. So I guess go Blues. I know they're kind of like in the middle of the pack this year, but my one direct experience with them, they looked pretty dominant.
Hey, yeah, that's a football score there. Wow.
Yeah, got a touchdown. This week marked the season opener and home opener for STL City, the MLS team that I have become a big fan of. Watched the game on Saturday night. And I've talked a lot about it on this show. I really have become quite a footy fan, quite a fan of the MLS and whatnot. But the game on Saturday night So City is supposed to be like the rank, like, the preseason rankings, they're as high as 4th overall in the conference and as low as 15th overall in the conference. So it's a wide open season. No one knows how it's going to go this year. It's almost fundamentally a new team compared to at least the season the first year 2 seasons ago. The game ended 0-0, which is the only reason I
Wow.
really bring it up, because I really have enjoyed soccer. It's been a lot of fun getting into it. And there are two things that I don't like about it. One are the handball rules, and two, I don't think any sport should be allowed to end 0-0. I think there should be
Couldn't agree
some
with you more.
sort. I think there should be some sort of rule, like 1-1. I understand ties, and in soccer, like that's fine. If you ties happen, I get it. If you want to have ties in your sport, that's okay. But as someone at our game last night said, the result shouldn't be the same as if the game never happened at all. So 0-0, I think soccer should have a shootout or something to prevent it, because it is kind of defeating to watch an entire match and end with just 0 goals being scored.
Couldn't agree with you more.
So anyway, soccer's back. I'll continue to cover it to some degree here on this show for the probably like 5 listeners that are into that. But yeah, it's been a big St. Louis sports week.
Wow.
And most importantly, though, spring has sprung. The Cardinals are playing. We watched real baseball, right? In fact, right now,
I
the
wouldn't
Cardinals are
call it
playing.
real baseball. I mean, baseball players are on baseball fields, but it's not real baseball.
It is not qualifying baseball, but
Yes.
you can't not call it real baseball.
It's
They
just
were
for the
certainly.
lulls. I mean, getting ready for the season. I don't really know what they're doing.
Well, they're playing baseball games, that's for sure. And in fact, there's one happening right
That
now. The
cannot
Cardinals
be
are,
argued. They are playing
you
baseball
cannot argue
games. I
that.
agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing against the New York Yankees right now. And I have been having a wonderful time having baseball on my TV and on my radio again. How are you feeling?
It's unbelievable how long the off season can feel, and it is so sweet when that starts to end in earnest, and we can pull up our MLB.TVs and watch, like 25% of a decent game and then
Yeah.
75% of kind of a joke, but still counts, baby.
Yeah, not to go back to soccer, but the soccer season ends after the baseball season and begins before the baseball season. so,
Ridiculous.
so it's like, I know it's not like we have any lack of baseball once it gets started, but it really starts to
Well,
grind
it's
on
just
you.
we've talked, when you have like 4 to 6 games a week or whatever it kind of
Yeah,
averages out to, and then you go to nothing. It is such a
yeah,
whiplash. It is so
it
hard to adjust.
it really is.
Like, what
And
do I
so
do now?
even having box scores to look at again, and yeah, I don't recognize half the name. Even I don't recognize a lot of the names that are coming
Yeah.
up in these box scores later in the games and whatnot. But even still,
Odenier Moscata. That's
yeah,
who's pitching for the St. Louis Cardinals as we talk right now.
yeah, I that is someone that I am not familiar with. I wish them the best though.
Hell yeah.
Some like deep prospect hound who listens right now is like, "What? You don't know Muscat?" So,
And we're
uh,
pronouncing his name horribly wrong, I'm
yeah.
sure.
Hopefully, we come to know his name. We wish him the
Wow.
best.
Wow.
But yeah, so I know you wanted to talk about this. Uh, I think like really the talk of early spring training right now is the ABS system, the pitchers and batters being able to directly challenge. Um, yeah, the tap of the hat being able to challenge pitch location and balls and strikes calling being
Yeah.
called. This has been tested in the minors. We've seen this in some international leagues as well. So it's not like really a new system to any of us, but obviously seeing Major League Baseball players doing it is brand new. What have you been? How have you been feeling about it so far?
I I mean, I think I've talked on this show. This is, I think, the pathway that I want to go. I don't want a fully automated
Yeah.
balls and strikes calling system. I like the fact that the human element is there. I like the fact that pitchers can kind of earn things, that catcher framing is still important. Like no batter or pitcher has or catcher has a perfect eye. So like the fact that, they're not that there's still some flexibility to it.
Yeah.
And the egregious calls can be corrected. And I think what's really going to be important is that, because people are in charge of when they can challenge it, they can pick the leverage as part of the game
Mhm.
that they are determining is the most important. And I think that makes it really interesting. I think like you and I, when this does come to MLB, which I think will happen fairly soon because this is happening, or I think what's happening right now, it's so quick and crisp, and you get like a little bit of fan involvement with it, being put up on the scoreboard and on the broadcast. I think fans are going to like this. I think you and I are going to have something interesting to talk about of like timing situations of when you're deciding to use these. Do you use it in the first inning, or are you holding it till the eighth and ninth?
Yeah.
All of that I think is really cool. There's some gameplay to it which I enjoy. Um, so yeah, I would say so far so good. I would say I've seen some breakdowns of how the ABS system works and like what that strike zone is, and it seems to be a little smaller than what we're all used to, especially with our K zone on our
Yeah.
TVs. So I'm curious to see if that gets adjusted at all. But so far, I'm into it. I will say there's going to be a point where a game ends on a ABS called strike, and that's going to probably be anticlimactic and not the most exciting. But I don't know if it goes in the Cardinals' favor. I'll probably be like, yeah, let's
Let's
go. Joe
go. Yeah.
Romero painted that corner. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I do think like so. I've obviously been on the record countless times being very pro robo umpire, automate the entire thing. Let's just get pure accuracy and stop worrying about anything else. And I still do feel that way. However, I will say like
Nate
if
is trying
this,
to kill the catcher. That's what he's trying to do.
but I do want them to be able to bring back the rule where you can truck the catcher too. So I want them. I want them to be
Actually killed. You
yeah, I wanna
actually
kill
want
him
them killed.
every
Yeah.
way that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, uh, that said, though I still feel that way, if this system works for everyone in the way that it seems to early on, I'd be very on board with this being the way it operates for the foreseeable future. I do agree, like, I think one of the minor issues of it will be this is purely just an enjoyment of the game thing, but the dramatic umpire going like, "You're out," punching him out, and then a little tap on the head, and it's like, "Never mind, ball
Yeah.
3." Like and so I think it's gonna be there's gonna now be a little bit of like a delay of like obviously there'll be some that's like down the middle, whatever, for sure. But now it'll be like, oh, I think that there'll be just like a little bit of delayed reaction to some really dramatic moments, and there'll be some overturns of some really dramatic moments. But at the end of the day, my whole point is I want accuracy out of this whole thing. I don't like that it is reliant on some old man's consistence and eyeballs and whatnot. And so
Well, first off, I'd like umpires are getting younger. I think you were painting with a broad brush here, and I think you are purposely using language to make umpires sound worse than they actually are.
well,
I
I
know
said
we did just lose our best umpire to a gambling scheme, but that's part of the human element, Nathan.
Did you see this happened again to bring it back to soccer? There was a big game. I don't know all the details, but basically after the match on the field, one of the refs walked up to Messi and asked for an autograph. he
Classic.
is it was then suspended for 6 months.
Wow.
Um,
That
yeah.
is a harsh punishment,
I
but
I was actually surprised that they dropped the hammer so much, but I kind of appreciate it
it's
because
very unprofessional.
you
Also, it
can't
implies that you're a fan of this guy, meaning that you have like a dog in the race. Like,
there's a lot of reasons why
yeah,
it's
yeah,
very, very dumb, and I was surprised that he was suspended for I mean, that's most of the season,
yeah.
and,
Most of
I
the
just
12-month season.
yeah, I wouldn't have expected that, but I was kinda glad that they did because, I think you can be a big fan of Messi and still call a fair game, but there are certain optics that you just, as a officiator of the game, you just can't do that,
Right. Yeah.
Um,
At
but
least not
anyway,
on the field.
on
Do it
the
later, dude.
right. Well, totally. Like, yeah, I get you want to. I mean, Messi's a global superstar. You want the
Yeah.
autograph. You're right there. Like, you can understand the human side of this, and probably not thinking about it. Like, I don't think he probably even was biased in his calling. I didn't watch the game, but probably most people are fans of Messi. He's like one of the
Yeah.
most famous players of all time.
Right.
But just that singular thing, it'd be like, calling like a good ball four instead of a strikeout on a pitcher or on a hitter, and then like asking for his autograph when he rounds home base later in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very silly.
But anyway, I think the ABS stuff is cool. There's going to be some refinement. From my understanding, it's really still open as to when or if it goes into MLB. But it certainly seems like if they don't decide to just add it mid-season, it'll be next year, right? Like, do you know more about the plan of how this will be integrated into the game?
No, I mean, they haven't really announced. All that's really happened is that Rob Manfred says that it's coming, and that that we're obviously testing, and I'm sure the players and the player association will be expected to give their feedback. But it seems like everyone really likes it so far. I don't really see any problem with it. Clearly, we haven't seen an umpire explode on a player yet, so I think the umpires union is on board with this change. So I would expect it to happen very
Yeah.
soon. Next year would not surprise me at all. But I
I
don't.
imagine
To my knowledge, nothing's been announced.
I would think most reasonable umpires, and so I have no idea what percentage of umpires that is, would like something like this because they don't want to be the one either. They don't want to be the what's his name with the Gallarga call and whatnot.
Yeah,
Like,
I
you
mean,
know,
I would assume there's a lot of umpires who are out there thinking like, great, this will prove how accurate we are.
for sure.
95, 98 per whatever their numbers are. It'll show how close we are, and if it's really really close, if it's just a hair off the strike zone, it'll also kind of display how hard their job is, and how
Yeah.
often they're doing a good job. So I agree with you. Like, Joe West is gone, so like I think most people will be on board.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting if you saw Max Scherzer seemingly was fooled by his own catcher's framing job,
Yeah,
because he called for a review of something that was called a ball of his own pitch, and it was pretty low when you look at where it
like 4 or
landed.
5 inches below the strike zone. Yeah.
Yeah, but his catcher did a pretty good job of framing it, and so he got fooled and called for it, and I think that'll be interesting too to see
Well,
how often pitchers are wrong and they see the whole thing.
and I think this is also speaks to what I was talking about of like players understanding what what zone ABS is calling. Like, it's you can have an idea of what that cube looks like, and ABS knows exactly what it's looking for. But like, if you're in there in 3D space, it's really hard to
Yeah.
actually know where that 3D cube is.
You just know
Or,
Matt
or
Carpenter is so pissed that this is coming after his
well,
time.
I'm very curious to see is are Lars Nootbaar and Juan Soto going to be the best at calling these
Yeah.
challenges, or like, and is somebody is a Lucan Baker type, is he going to be really bad at this, or is it going to translate exactly how you would expect, or would there be some people who are just better at calling this, or not? But yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's the right move.
Yeah. Yeah, this seems like a meaningful improvement, and I'm here for it. So,
Yeah.
we'll see. I think it seems to me like that if the tech is there, which it seems like it would be, like, if everyone really likes it in spring, why not just throw it in the regular season? But they may want more
Maybe.
time with it. And
Yeah.
this may be something that needs to go here. I'm just speculating, but it may be something that needs to go through like a voting system and all that, and could take some time to implement. But
Well, I think that's the nice way to do it. But we've seen Rob Manfred and MLB implement rules without the Players Association agreeing to it. So
true, true.
I think that, there's a nice way to do it, and there's just a way to do it. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, we want to talk about some outcomes from the games, but we also do have a little bit of just like high level Cardinal news to talk about as well. Nothing meaningful has happened, but there's still some rumors trickling. So, what do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, I think a couple of noteworthy news items. Is that Gould reported the Cardinals are open to moving Eric Fedde to make room for pitchers like Michael McGreevy. I think that, from the place where we're sitting, we're like, duh, why have we been
Yeah.
doing this? There are innings out there. We saw some impressive performances already in this first week of spring training by some young pitchers. Um, but again, it's a retooling / development year or whatever. Eric Fedde is not a part of the Cardinals' future. I think he would be highly desirable. He is cheap from a starting pitching standpoint. And we've already had some pitchers go down. Frankie Montez to miss, I think, 8 weeks to start the season. And who
Hmm.
knows, he's a guy with injury history. Who knows when he'll come back? So it makes sense that they're probably fielding interest. And even more so from a Cardinal standpoint, I think it makes sense to let's get Gordon Graceffo, let's get Michael McGreevy,
Yeah.
Libertor, let's get these guys some innings. And, you and I have talked about this, even if Graceffo isn't performing immediately, you can get him a couple of starts. Okay, that didn't work. Let's get McGreevy a couple of starts. That may or may not have worked. Let's go to Libertor. Let's let these guys get some major league innings, because as the team is currently configured, there aren't really enough to really get good eyes on some of these starting pitchers who are 23, 24, 25, 26. Like, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rip off
Yeah.
the
100.
cellophane.
Yeah. Well, this almost feels like a rehash of a conversation we've had a dozen times this offseason around Eric Fedde and other guys in his position, right? Like, it really, outside of thinking you might have a chance in 2025, it really doesn't make any sense for the Cardinals to have Eric Fedde this year. And this statement, the Cardinals are open to discussing trading Eric Fedde, kind of felt like a nothing burger to me. Ultimately, it's like, well,
See,
every team is open to discussing everybody most of the time, you know?
I I was reading that like Mo speak for we're fielding offers, but he's never
Yeah,
going to come out and say something like that. So that makes me think that people are calling. Like I said, there's already been pitchers who have been injured early in spring. That will continue to happen. We still have weeks of that. So I would imagine Eric Fedde becomes more and more popular.
yeah.
Each pitching injury.
Well, even like going into the offseason, MLB Trade Rumors had their list of like top 50 trade candidates, and Eric Fedde, I believe, was in the top 10, right? So he's been a known quantity of a high value trade target this entire offseason. It has seemed to be the Cardinals who haven't really pushed him. So I guess you're right. Maybe this is him saying like we're having a slight change in opinion. I just can't imagine what has changed their opinion between November and this last 2 weeks about Eric Fedde. So it didn't really feel like news to me, but maybe it is.
I bet you it's on the other side is they're getting a look at Graceffo and McGreevy, and obviously they can't make decisions on their players unless they are directly in front of their face. So they're seeing Graceffo and McGreevy and all these guys. Takoa Roby was throwing gas the other day,
He
and they're like,
was, yeah.
"Oh, maybe these guys
Oh
are all
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Maybe we
sure.
could move on from Fetty, who had a really really nice year last year."
Maybe Mozeliak has object permanence issues. If the thing's not directly in front of him, he like can't recognize that it exists.
This is why player ops and player dev weren't talking to each other, because there's different offices. So that's why, at the Christmas party, oh, what are you guys doing?
Oh, yeah, you. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
Well, even though we've flipped the switch to pro 2025, we're optimistic. Cardinals are going to win this year. I'm still a big fan of the Cardinals trading Eric Fedde for some high value return and letting, like you just said, Graceffo or Jerby or Libertor, Zach Thompson. There's enough guys in there that we want to see innings from, and Roby
absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah,
Roby kind of forgotten about by a lot of Cardinal fans because of
yeah,
last year. Was a huge part of the Jordan Montgomery trade in 2023, and at one point was projected to be a near top of line or at least middle rotation type guy, and injury plagued 2024, some ineffectiveness, kind of the life of a pitching prospect. You're either a top prospect or no one knows about you.
right.
But he can return. He's still young, so it's been interesting and fun to see him again.
Yeah. Another little piece of news that we had this week. It was very funny. All of our favorite beat reporters were kind of circling this story. John Denton came out and said that the Arenado trade is happening or is gaining heat. Derek Gould came out and said no. And then Katie Wu, after the dust settled, came in and she reported earlier this week that although the Houston Astros re-engaged in brief trade discussions with the St. Louis Cardinals regarding Nolan Arenado, multiple sources said that no deal is gaining traction, and Arenado has not had any thoughts about approving the trade to the Astros. His opinion has not been swayed by their additions and subtractions and everything that they have. So, talk about a nothing burger. That's really what that circles back around to. The Astros and Cardinals can talk all day, but unless Arenado changes his feelings on becoming a Houston Astro, it's not going to happen. I think I could see a scenario, especially with if the Astros thought that they really had a chance of landing Alex Bregman and they wanted to pivot to Arenado and then maybe have Isaac Paredes, I don't know, play second. I don't know where would they put that guy
Yeah.
at that point. I don't really know because they also announced that Jordan Alvarez is only DHing, but doesn't really matter. That deal's not moving forward. Arenado's not waiving his no trade clause, and like we talked about the last 12 weeks, there's not really a ton of landing places for him. So he
Yeah.
is your third baseman.
Yeah, and we're fine with that. I suspect that there'll be little pockets of these sorts of rumors coming up and down, and it'll probably, depending on the Cardinals' record and what the trade deadline is looking like, this may surface again and become a hot topic. But I'm just assuming he is a Cardinal till probably at the very least July 31st of 2025.
Something I did want to talk to you about is the idea of your St. Louis Cardinals making an Arenado trade with the Chicago Cubs. Um,
Dear
it
no,
makes it, huh?
no.
Yeah. So this is what I'm wondering is our emotional feeling around this of you don't trade with the Cubs, especially your future Hall of Fame third baseman. Um, or does it make sense? The Cubs, obviously, it's been reported widely that they were heavily in on Bregman. He would have
Mhm.
played third base. I guess the idea there is that Matt Shaw is either not ready for the bigs potentially, or he would play more of like a super utility role.
Yeah,
It would only make sense for them to then look at Nolan Arenado, who is a supreme defender,
sure.
who makes sense for what they're. I mean, they're all about that run suppression game. They have a phenomenal defense right now. Um, so I guess like if you are the St. Louis Cardinals, if you're John Mozeliak, is it just an absolute hard no? Or do you trade with the Cubs if they're actually interested? Kind of maybe apply a bit of a Cubs tax, an interdivision rival tax on that trade, and make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of I understand both sides of that take. I've long thought it kind of silly the like you don't trade with your rivals sort of thing.
Yeah,
Because like you really should just be it should just all be about value in return. And you really shouldn't think about any of that. Um and especially nowadays with a far more balanced schedule, like it made a little bit more sense to me when schedules were less balanced. You're really playing in division more than others,
right.
and like that's a team you're going to be playing for or playing against a lot. And you don't want to really do anything that helps them, even if it also helps you, because you just don't know how this trade is going to turn out long term. But with the more modern scheduling, I think it means less, and um, I think it's a little silly to let essentially created rivalry prevent you from making a trade.
Yeah,
That said, like I do kind of appreciate just the fan service side of that whole thing. Like sports are meant to be fun.
yeah,
And it's kind of fun to be like, no, fuck you guys. We're not trading with you. Like, I can get on board for like the stupid raw emotion narrative side of things, and just fine. We'll never trade with the Cubs, and that's fine because fuck them.
yeah,
That's kind of fun too, and I can get on board for that. So I don't know. I guess like I hadn't really thought about that. You're right. It does make sense. I mean, I'm a believer in Matt Shaw, but if the Cubs clearly see they just traded for Kyle Tucker and he has
Yeah.
already basically said he's going to free agency. So they're clearly not all in on this year, but they are pushing in for this year to some degree. And if you're looking at your team and you have the option of Arenado or an unproven but highly touted rookie, there's a lot of sense in going with the veteran who you know is going to be a Gold Glove.
Right.
I don't see it
Um,
happening. I'd be very surprised.
I don't see. There's also, where the huge elephant in the room is, would Nato even approve that trade? And
Yeah,
I could see that being something he doesn't want to put out into the world, because he doesn't want to say, I would approve a trade to the Cubs and then be a Cardinal, because I'm sure that fans would be, super chill
why of
about
all
that.
teams? Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But I wonder if in the back rooms, if he would approve that, or if he views the Cubs as even a team that is of that caliber, that
yeah. I
he's
don't
kind
know
of
enough
looking for.
about their. It's an interesting question. Obviously, 2025. I think it's very fair to say you'd rather be a Cub than a Cardinal as far as your playoff chances go.
Yeah,
Right, just on that lens. I don't want to. I don't want to. Expand that. But like right
yeah.
now, if you want to get in the playoffs, I think you'd rather be a Cub than a Cardinal in 2025. 2026, it's a little bit more of an open question to me, right? Like I don't. They
Well,
lose
I think
Kyle Tucker. Like they're not they're right in the middle of the pack with a lot of other teams. I think.
I think you would have to be frustrated, because there's been articles that have come out this offseason of, the Cubs are making as much money as basically anyone outside of the Dodgers and
Yeah.
Yankees, and yet they are right in the middle of the pack as far as payroll, when they could really be flexing that muscle. So I think it'd be totally fair for anyone to be questioning, like, are they really going for it, or are they more concerned with, you know they're going to sell that stadium out. Wrigleyville is going to continue to be a cash cow. Are they more concerned with just making that money and being mildly competitive, and hoping things break right? I think that would be 100% fair criticism. But I
Yeah.
agree with your statement. Like, for 2025, I would rather be a Cubs fan than a Cardinals fan. But yeah, after that, who knows? Like, is PCA going to work out? Is Matt Shaw going to work out? Is Michael Bush the real deal? Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson, are they going to hit? Are these guys good? There's a lot of questions.
Yeah. 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 Um, Yeah, I don't know what a deal like that would look like too, but
Yeah.
I've seen that a little bit on online too. There's a lot of frustration from the Cubs fan standpoint right now too, with such a wide open NL Central, and they have unlimited resources, just like a lot of these other high market teams. So why are they not out there? You know,
Why,
they're
why are they
they're
signing Matthew Boyd when they could have got a frontline starter
yeah, yeah, totally. Any
and
of the
still made money?
I mean, they could have signed Soto, but we didn't
Yeah.
see, no one saw that coming, but they have those
Whew.
resources. I will there is I there's a whole other topic we don't have to go into, but there is still that like lasting thing of the Cubs like lost a ton of money on a lot of that stuff and have been kind of saying that they've been broke for a while now. So maybe this is an extension of that, but I don't know. There's
Yeah, Forbes valued their club at something like $5.6 billion. I just,
money's
I understand.
available.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll be fine. And like I said, that whole area around Wrigley is a cash cow for them, and
Yeah.
they're fine. One last piece of Cardinals news. I thought this was great. This was reported by Ben Hotchman earlier this week. He said a fun new thing that the Cardinals have brought to spring training is that hitters are rewarded with HIT cookies, HIT cookies, in lockers or red packages. It's a European cookie that Brant Brown is giving out to all the position players in their lockers, basically saying there are hits in these bags. So just a little fun thing that I thought. And, the Cardinals, the last couple of seasons, I feel like they've been criticized for having a very stuffy, workman-like
Uh-huh.
clubhouse. I think that this is good. Let's go Brant Brown. I'm on
Sure.
team him.
Sure, cookies. Love
You don't like
cookies.
cookies? What? You
I
don't
like
like cookies?
cookies.
Okay.
I
I feel
got
like you're.
we've got Girl Scouts going on in my house. So
Oh, dude, I
I got
just got my Thin Mints. Hell yeah.
I got cookies for days.
Yeah, I'm a Thin Mint freezer guy. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm not a Thin Mint guy, so I don't have an
Yeah.
opinion on Thin Mint freezers.
Cool. Well, let's
I-
talk
But
about
I,
something else then.
You can find me at a. I'm not gonna fully dox myself, but you'll find me out on these streets somewhere this weekend, hawking some Girl Scout cookies.
Hawk Tua. Um, all right, let's move to some spring training news or some player performance. How about that?
Let's
Uh,
just move right past that. Thank you.
you gave me a look that you didn't want to talk about that, so we'll move on. Um, let's talk about Victor Scott. We saw him find a little bit of a power swing yesterday and on that Tuesday game, which was a lot of fun. He crushed a triple, he crushed a homer, and he had a line out all in the same game. He played some good defenses and was kind of causing some chaos on the base paths. All three of the balls that he hit were 98 miles or higher. And that line out, of course, the one with the bad result, but obviously good process, was at 106. That is close to his career high from last year. So I think, just seeing him leave the park and then that triple, obviously the slug is out of control this early spring, but I think we're all pretty excited. He's so young and so talented that I would not be surprised if he's one adjustment, one click away from kind of unlocking that bat. Obviously, we don't want to respond too much from a couple of spring training at bats, but pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, I think it's worth a quick discussion on like what to take from spring, right? I think what I generally look at for spring numbers is I don't think about results very much because there's so much that goes into that. Who's pitching? Who's what are they trying to accomplish in that
How's the
moment?
wind blowing?
How's the wind blowing? These are interestingly, smaller stadiums, often more open air, so wind is way bigger of an impact and whatnot. So like, it's a cliche, but like, don't look at the scoreboard on a spring training game. But what I do think is worth looking at typically are these underlying numbers, and EV, exit velocity for a hitter, I think is a really valuable thing to look at. The pitcher might not have their best stuff; they might be trying different things, but you still have to hit the ball really hard and really well to get that kind of EV, right? And I think that's something that's worth looking at. I think velocity from pitchers and spin rate is worth looking at. Don't look too much at, again, outcomes, because they might be trying, how hard can I throw this down the middle, or I'm going to
Right.
throw 18 sliders in a row or whatever. But looking at spin rate and velocity matters. So coming back to Victor Scott, hard not to start getting excited. You know, he's hitting the ball really, really hard already. And, we know hitting the ball hard is a secret to power. That's his problem. He's got every other skill in spades. It's just, can he hit it really, really hard? And immediately some of the best results of his career from an EV standpoint.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I was looking at Victor Scott's Statcast stuff before we hopped on, and what I was surprised by is his exit velocity is not horrible, and it actually jumped, and these are small sample sizes, but it actually jumped from AAA to MLB, sitting around 88 miles per hour average exit velo, which is not great or not bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
But his launch angle was around 12%, which also increased from going to AAA to MLB. So if he can if he can hit the ball with those kind of exit velos and keep his 12% or even higher average launch angle, you can see a lot of homers coming Victor's way. Now, probably to the pull side, he's probably not banging them
Mhm.
out in center and to the opposite field. But those are good things to see. Like, we've been talking about um, our buddy Jordan Walker, and he would kill for a 12% launch or a 12-degree launch angle, not
Yeah.
percent. Um, so yeah, I'm feeling hopeful and excited, and I don't think there would be any better outcome for the spring training than Victor Scott kind of running away with an outfield job.
Yeah, it was also interesting that he started in left and Newt started in center.
Yeah,
I don't think that that's showing any sort of desire for Victor Scott to play left. The way I took it, and I'm interested to hear your opinion if you feel anything different, but like, it seemed to me like they're just saying, let's give Newt some reps in center. That's more important right now. But we also want Victor Scott to get at bats. So we'll
yeah.
stick him in left. We know what he can do in center. We don't really need to see him out there. It's Newt who we need to see out there. And so let's just get Victor at bats in left, new defensive reps in center, and let it rip. It's spring training.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. I think it's exactly what you said. Get Newt out there, and keep Victor moving. Don't keep him being active and out there playing and getting those ABs. But yeah, fully agree.
Yeah. How about you mentioned going opposite field? You know who did go opposite field? Hit the shit out of the
JJ,
ball.
he did.
JJ. Yeah. Yeah, you and I had done a little bet, a little friendly wager, nothing at stake of who would hit the first home run, in spring for the St.
Yeah,
Louis Cardinals this year.
yeah.
Um, you picked Gorman, I think, and
Oh,
I
now I can't
said
remember. That
Luke
sounds
and
right though.
Baker, and I said
Yeah,
Luke and Baker. But I think we're both pretty jazzed about the actual outcome. JJ Weatherholt, really, there's been a lot of fun outcomes from this spring so far, but I think hard not to say he's been the most fun, kind of doing everything right now, including ripping an absolute blast of an opposite field home run.
yeah.
How
I
you
think
feeling?
the fact that it went opposite was really exciting. A home run in early spring training game isn't too anything to get freaked out about. But the fact that it went opposite field, the fact that he also stole a base, I think the fact that his at bats just look strong. He seems to have a good sense of the zone. We haven't seen him play a ton, so seeing that in on our TVs and our computers was really exciting. And I also think just seeing from my point of view, seeing his physicality, like he's a smaller guy, but he just looks like he fits. He looks,
Yeah.
he looks comfortable in the box. He looks calm at the plate. He looks like he knows the zone. And then obviously he trusts himself in his hands enough to kind of spank a ball that he's slightly behind and take it out of the park. So, we talked about when this guy was drafted and when he performed last year, it's about as polished as they get. And
Yeah.
I'm sure he needs some cooking, some baking in the minors, but this guy looks the part. And
Uh,
that's exciting.
Yeah, I think it's fun to remember that for a while he was projected as the number one overall pick in the
Yeah.
draft, and only because
Mhm.
of some injuries, which is a real concern. You can see why that would drop your value. But from a pure skill standpoint, he was considered as potentially the first overall pick. And I saw
Yeah.
an independent baseball writer, so not Cardinal affiliated baseball writer, say that JJ Weatherholt might already be the best pure hitter in the minor league system. Um,
You we've only watched like 6, 7 at bats by the kid and against major league pitching, but I get it. It's
yeah,
it's it's easy to see, and we've watched a lot of Jordan Walker in spring training. It's like, oh, there's spits and starts, and Dylan Carlson and some of these other high end prospects that have come up. And I think I could say this fairly confidently. He just looks, like I said, polished and fairly well ready to go. So yeah, how do you let's start the hype train. Like I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade here.
yeah. He's one of the most exciting players in the minors, and especially on the Cardinals. He's the number one overall prospect for the St. Louis Cardinals. So uh, be hyped. But right behind him on the hype train,
Yeah,
uh, Quinn Matthews. For a lot of Cardinal fans, this was probably their first time seeing him pitch. He had a
totally.
meteoric rise through the minors last year. So you might have caught some of that, but this was a little bit of a coming out party, a little bit of a showcase for Cardinal fans of who is this guy. Um, and
Just
I
being
didn't even mean to.
self-referential. Yeah,
Yeah,
wow, that was
I
lame.
didn't even mean to do that. But I mean, you can see it, right? Like this was a 2 innings against mostly the Blue Jays lineup.
Yeah,
So it was major league hitters, early spring, et cetera, but still Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is in the lineup. That
as
alone,
as good as they come. Yeah,
yeah, one of the most intimidating presence. You're not gonna get one by on that guy, and he strikes him out. 3 Ks. He got into a little bit of trouble in his second inning, but got out of it unscathed. Looked the part. Just eye test. I mean, only 2 innings, but man, you can see it, right? Big lefty. I wouldn't call it an easy delivery, There's definitely it's kind of an effort guy, but it looked great.
I agree. It is I've seen like the clips on Twitter and videos here and there, but that was the most I've watched him pitch. It is a violent approach. But Max Scherzer, who he was pitching against, has a violent approach, and he
Yeah,
did that to the Hall of Fame. So I don't think I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know enough about biomechanics to tell you it's going to work or not. But it's getting out major league hitters. He looks good. He had command of the fastball, changeup, and slider. Both of those secondary pitches look really good to me.
yeah.
And obviously it's early in spring, so he wasn't pumping that mid 90s the whole time, but everything looks good to me, and the body, the everything. There was a great article on MLB.com, or maybe it was Derek Gould. I'm sorry, I can't remember, but just talking about how he is a student of pitching, and he's
Yeah.
constantly trying to get better, like in the same vein as Sonny Gray and Max Scherzer and those guys who have made it work. So yeah, I mean, it's hard not to say that JJ Weatherholt and Quinn Matthews really, really look like the future of the Cardinals. And I think you've kind of illustrated it this way before. Like the path to Cardinals relevancy is very likely through players like that.
Yeah, and I thought this is interesting. So Fangraphs released their top 100 prospect list, a list that I put a lot of value in. I think does a pretty good job. They have Quinn Matthews. I think it was at 34 overall, passing Tink Hence. One of the
Yeah.
first times I've seen him pass Tink Hence on a prospect list like that, and you can see it. So he's quickly become one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. Something the Cardinals desperately need. And remember, he was the 2024 minor league pitcher of the year, not the Cardinals minor league pitcher of the year, the minor league pitcher of the year.
Yeah.
So I can't help but think he is first up in the event of needing a guy from the minors to take a start. I think you're getting your McGreevy's and some of these other guys first, but if you're dipping down into the minors, someone making a debut, kind of feel like he's got to be the first. Maybe Tink Hence comes up and reminds us all a little bit about who he is, and they go that direction. But the frame, the amount of innings Quinn pitched last year, everything lines up to think this is his shot.
Yeah. Yeah. Even the name just sounds like a starting pitcher name, Quinn Matthews. It just seems like that guy's going to be in the big leagues for 10 years, and we'll all have a great time.
Yeah.
Speaking of another starting pitcher, we kind of referenced this earlier, but Roby, he had a really nice performance. The fact that he was sitting in the high 90s, I thought was really exciting. He had some nice strikeouts, a lot of swing and misses. And just seeing like 95, 96, 97, 98 from a guy that size and the slot that he throws at, this is another guy. You never want to put too much stock in pitching prospects, especially somebody who has been injured as often as he has. But he's looking healthy, and seeing him have that kind of juice this early in spring has got me feeling hyped on him as well.
Yeah, kind of already gave my piece on him
Yeah.
earlier in the episode. Just like it was kind of not uncommon to forget about a guy like him after what happened in 2024, but very common for high talent pitchers to have a rough year because of injury and whatnot, and then come back and remind us all who they were. And maybe that's happening with Roby. We need to see
Yep.
more, but he's got some pedigree, and it sure would be nice if we could start talking about him in the same sort of language that we're using for guys like Matthews and Tink Hence and whatnot.
Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about with spring is that today, as we're recording, is Jordan Walker's first start in right field and first plate appearances. So obviously that's going to be something that we're going to be tracking all spring long. I think these at bats and this outfield performance are as important as it gets. It does seem like almost no matter what, he is going to be starting out in right. But I think that these are as meaningful as spring at bats as are happening down in Florida this year, especially for the Cardinals. So he's starting. The Cardinals they just broke up a perfect game as we're talking about. So we'll see if Walker gets some hits and how he's looking in right. But I think something that's interesting and worth tracking, like I said.
Yeah, unfortunately, Hence has gotten torched a little bit, and Jordan Walker has struck out twice. This was his first start, but these were not his first PAs of the spring. He's come into a
Right.
few games,
Right.
but
Yep.
uh, Yeah, we'll talk about this game and all the other results, next week as more comes in. But yeah, it's a big spring for Jordan.
Definitely.
We've certainly had a lot to talk about, but it's been kind of the same thing over and over and over and over. So it's really, really good to get back into the game, back into results, and we can talk about some of these players and be hyped again. I'm just talking about JJ Weatherholt and Quinn Matthews and all this. It's just I'm starting to get back into like, hell yeah, baseball's coming back. It's fun. I'm an optimistic Cardinal fan. Let's watch and let's see these guys develop.
Yeah, there are reasons to be excited.
Yeah.
And most of those reasons are under the age of 24.
And we have some other news around the league to talk about, and we're going to start looking into other teams from around the NL Central and see how their off seasons went. But before we get to that, we want to remind you all that this show is listener supported on patreon.com. Listeners just like you out there listening can support the show directly by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Patrons of any level get access to our private Discord server. It has been popping this week. It's been so much fun to be able to talk about the games and just do like live instant reactions. A bunch of people in there talking about what's happening. It's really good. I like it way more than going on even Blue Sky, which I've enjoyed. It's been way more interactive than that, and you're actually talking to other people, other like-minded individuals who are enjoy the show. So you can get in there. You also get early episodes. We typically record on Wednesday, and I try to get it out as quickly as I can to the patrons. So if you want to get the show a day earlier, you can do that. And we have a bunch of other stuff too on the list. So patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. If you want to support the show in other ways, you could consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Even just pulling up the app and tapping those stars takes like 15 seconds. It really does help. I know a few of you out there have done that recently, and so thank you for that. If you write something, even better, but even just the quick review does help. So thank you for doing that. And then ultimately, podcasts still primarily spread through word of mouth. Now is a great time to start telling your friends and family about the show. Anyone you tell, we super appreciate it. But we've got other things going online too. Hambone, where can people find us elsewhere?
Yeah, we're on all that stuff like Blue Sky. Talking about birds over there. We're on Instagram. We got a TikTok. Come and look at our faces and our chatter on TikTok and share that stuff around too. That it all helps. If you enjoy the show, hit that share button on whatever stupid social media thing you like to do. It really helps us out. So thank you in advance for that. Where the show is available to listen to on Spotify or YouTube if you're one of those people. And of course, you can go to talkingaboutbirds.com to view the Patreon, everything that Nate was just talking about, t-shirts. Like I said, if you want to get ready for opening day and swap out for a non-Cardinal specific t-shirt, go check out our really, really good ones. And of course, you can email us questions, thoughts, comments, anything at all to talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. And you can call us and leave a voicemail or send us a text message to 848-48-BIRDS. That's 848-482-4737.
Yeah, I wore my I enjoy watching baseball to the hockey game last.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, I actually don't own a blue shirt. So I wore the next best thing,
Wow.
which was my baseball shirt.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Also, I can't guarantee like 100% consistency with this, but we've been playing around with doing full video episodes on YouTube. So if that's your thing, we're doing that now too. So check it out. It's also an easy way to share the show. People, there are still people out there who don't fully understand what podcasts are, but you send them a YouTube link. It's pretty easy to share the show.
There you go.
Unfortunately, you do have to look at us. But
Sorry.
yeah. All right. So, Hambone, we're going to talk about the Pirates.
Yeah. What do you think of
Cool.
that? So yeah, over the next 4 weeks, we're going to talk about the other four teams in the NL Central. We're going to go from descending playoff projection odds. That puts the Cardinals right in the middle, but that means that we're going to talk about the Pirates first. They are sitting here currently with a 10% chance to win the division and 18.5% chance to make the playoffs. and a less than 1% chance of winning the World Series, according to Fangraphs projection results. Their projected record is 77-84. To be precise, 77.8 and 84.2. So obviously that is a losing record. Their winning percentage would be 480. And yeah, I guess let's get into it. I think we have to start when talking about this team. Let's start at the top, and that is their pitching rotation, which
Yeah.
is has the potential to be one of the better rotations in the big leagues because of the top end talent that they have. Paul Skeens, who I think you could argue is top 3 pitcher in baseball right
Yep.
now, is headlining that. We all saw what he could do last year. Win the Rookie of the Year, almost win the Cy Young. Really, just incredible year. Expect him to have an entire full season. Hopefully, he stays healthy just for the good of the game this year. And then shortly after him, you have Mitch Keller, who I think very highly of.
Hmm.
A guy that has had a couple of weird years, but still has the stuff. Jared Jones, who is his stuff is second to no one really. It's as good as they come, and they just brought in Andrew Heaney, and they acquired Bailey Falter earlier this off season. So again, it's top heavy, but when your fourth pitcher is Andrew Heaney, and you have the likes of Paul Skeens in your rotation, you really see how this team could outpace that 77 win projection.
Yeah, they also have one of the they still have one of the best pitching prospects in baseball in their minors, Bubba Chandler. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
seen him. Great name. Love a baseball player going by Bubba, you know, top tier name. But Bubba Chandler is their top prospect and is expected to very likely make his debut this year. And so, like this year for sure, if not next year, they might have the best rotation in the NL, let alone the NL Central.
yeah.
And obviously, Skeens is doing a lot of lifting there, but it's Skeens. He's got to be a favorite to win the Cy Young this year. Assuming health, he's incredible. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what more to say about their pitching staff. I'm envious of what they've got
Yeah.
going over there.
Yeah, well, to make you feel better, let's talk about their position player group, because this is what is so frustrating about their ownership and what Bob Nutting has kind of done to the great people of Pittsburgh. You would think when you have a generational talent like Paul Skeens, or at least what we think will be, when you have a Jared Jones, when you're still rocking with a Mitch Keller, that you might push in on the position player group. But they really haven't done that. They brought in Tommy Pham. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Andrew McCutchen has been retained for another year. And then outside of that, I'm sorry, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is also going to be their starting shortstop. So a couple of player acquisitions, but obviously nothing very exciting there. All those players are going to be 30 years or older coming into the season, and none of them really have a high end projection. I think I'm looking at Andrew McCutchen's WAR projection for next season, and it is at 0.0. So nothing really exciting. I I don't really know what to say about this team. I guess if we want to be newsworthy, it should be noted that O'Neal Cruz is making a move from shortstop to center field. Um,
Hmm.
I expect that to go well. He's an athletic freak. He obviously has the arm and the speed to play in the outfield. Will he be tracking balls well and play a good defensive outfield? I don't really know. He is one of those guys who I could see him win an MVP this season. I could
Yeah,
also see him get demoted to the minors. He has such high end talent, but such swing and miss. He's projected to strike out around 30% this year. Um, can he make it work? That's a
yeah.
huge question for the Pirates.
It's a big year for him because he had a bit of a breakout last year. He had a really good season,
Yeah,
and some of that batted ball profile started to come together. He's, similarly to like an Ellie De La Cruz, he can sustain a higher strikeout rate than most players and be very successful as long as he can keep that contact up. Because when he
yeah,
hits the ball, he hits the shit out of the ball. And he's very fast. He's a freak, like he's just one of those monster humans that do everything extremely well. So yeah, he absolutely is one of those guys that is like a dark horse MVP candidate, much like an Ellie who we saw put it together last year. But right, with that swing and that power comes great miss, great miss responsibility. I don't know,
You crushed that. That was
who's gonna
good.
bail on that one? With great power comes great strikeout potential.
There you go.
But I'm a big fan. I mean, I think most people are a pretty big fan of O'Neal Cruz. He's a lot of fun when he's playing
Yeah.
really well, and last year he played really well. So if he can do it for a full year, that's going to have a huge impact. But the
Yeah.
problem is there's really no one else around them on that team that you project that for.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
even if everyone hits their top 75% outcome, it's still just sort of a middling lineup. You got Brian Reynolds, who we all like. He's always good. O'Neal Cruz. And then after that, I don't know, maybe finally Brian Hayes does something, but I'm kind of
I
over him at this point.
I don't think you can't chase that anymore. I think the player to focus in on is the fact that very much looks like Indy Rodriguez, a
I
former
was about to
high
say the
end
same.
catching prospect, is going to
Yeah.
be sitting over at first base this year. If you remember, they kind of have had a revolving door over there. This is a guy with potential power threat, a guy who can hit. He came up as a catcher. We assume his defense and he's very young and athletic. We assume his defense at first base should be fine. If this guy can start hitting and hitting for a little bit of power and cement himself down at first base, you could see how a combination of O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds, Indy Rodriguez, and Andrew McCutchen, even though he is he's going to be 38, 39 during this season, still walks. He can still take a professional at bat. Maybe this offense is just barely enough to be competitive and to be a 500 team.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's going to have to go through the pitching, but you can really squint and try to do some yoga to understand how this team could possibly be better than last in the division.
Yeah, I mean, if the pitching, I mean, teams have won with mediocre lineups off of
Yeah.
elite level pitching. So it's like, I guess Skeens, Jared Jones, Keller, maybe Bubba Chandler comes up and is awesome, and you all
Yeah.
of a sudden have this like super deep, near elite, if not elite rotation. The bullpen holds, and your team averages like a 105 WRC plus or something. Like maybe you have a better outcome than we were expecting.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of stuff to come together, which is why ultimately I think they're expected to have a 77 win season, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't really have much to add to that. It is they're really hoping and praying for everything to go their way. But yeah, I think one other player to shout out is David Bednar still exists. One of
Yeah.
the better closers in baseball. We'll see how his year goes. But this is it was a pretty disappointing offseason if you're a Pirates fan. I mean, one of their most impactful moves is they bring back Adam Frazier, who is kind of a bench bat who's faded
Yeah.
relevancy for quite a while at this point. Um, and yeah, it has the feeling of the Pittsburgh Pirates kind of fumbling a bit right now. I think that if they are planning on going in and they're just waiting for the perfect time, you never know how many innings you're going to get out of Paul Skeens and Jared Jones. You never know how this is going to work out. And I just think it's very silly to not try to acquire a bat this
Yeah.
offseason. And I think it's going to turn, or I think we'll look back at this as a huge miss for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I
Do you
guess
think 77 and 84, do you think that they are going to beat that projection or underperform it?
I'm going to say under.
I think I'm going to say under 2, just because if a
I think
Skeens,
they'll
a
do
Keller,
better than
a
under
Jones,
2.
under as well. Skeens, Keller, Jones, Heaney, or Falter, if any of them falter throughout the season. Wow. You like that?
Yeah.
We're maybe looking at a pretty bad team really
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Should we get to league news?
I think so.
All right. Not too much to talk about. A couple of things. We'll go through this relatively quickly. The Yankees extend Aaron Boone for 2 more years. He was kind of in that lame duck manager thing. Obviously, he went to the World Series. I know Yankees fans are annoyed by him, but I don't know. I think it's silly. He's obviously doing something right, and the players like him. So, I have no real strong opinions on this, but Aaron Boone around for a couple more seasons.
Made sense to me. I mean, I know that you can be mad at them, but they had a very successful season last year, had a deep playoff run. Like, I know they're starting to get it's the Yankees. They haven't won a championship in a while. It's all the pressure's rising, but he sure seems to be pretty good at this.
Yeah. The Yankees also have made, I think, a much more impactful adjustment, and that is that they have removed their full facial hair ban. If you remember, they were limited to mustaches only, which has given us some glorious mustaches in the past.
Yes.
But Hal Steinbrenner wrote a little, like, I guess, a PSA. I don't know what you would call it, but he is determined, after speaking with players and ex-players and people around the game. I don't know, Derek Jeter. I don't know who he talks to. But the Yankees are now allowing well-groomed beards.
Wow.
So I think that would discount both of us. We're not included there, but you know, this is
Yeah,
newsworthy and noteworthy in today's
it
game, I guess.
is. It seemed inevitable. I'm a
Yeah,
little surprised it happened so like, without much fanfare or without much lead up to it, I think,
yeah,
like, Devin Williams had a big beard, was traded, and then shaved, and apparently he is part of the reason why this happened. He expressed, like, some desire to not have wishing he didn't have to do that, and then the Yankees organization finally decided to review it and make a change. I'm glad they did. Like, I like,
silly.
yeah, like, at a I think I'm glad they made the change because you and I are both very, very pro players expressing their personality. And someone's facial hair is their own choice, and I'm glad that a player can continue to make that choice on the Yankees. I also didn't care that much about this rule. Like, baseball is so much about tradition and whatnot, and like, you never really heard anyone getting really mad about it. I think there was even some fun in that some players would have when they get traded. They do videos of them shaving their beards and
Yeah,
stuff like that. Like, it never really seemed like a big problem to me. And as far as problems with the game go, I'm like, whatever. If the Yankees want to have this stodgy presentation, that's fine. So
yeah.
I don't really care that it existed. I am glad that it's gone. But I was a little surprised it went down this way. I really thought that what would happen is there'd be some battle of wills between like imagine if Juan Soto had a big beard, right? And they were like, it came down to he'll join you if he doesn't have to shave his beard, like, and they acquiesce, and that's the change. That's how I saw that going. So it happening kind of quietly and this way was surprising. But I guess it's nice that someone like Steinbrenner can actually still listen to feedback
Yeah,
and
yeah.
solicit it and make a change.
That's a nice way to look at that. I did love the Rougned Odor beard shave
Right.
because he looked
That
like
I think about that
went from
one.
like a tough guy to a little cherubic baby. It was very entertaining.
Yeah.
All right, a couple other news points. I think I referenced this earlier, but Frankie Montas is shut down for 6 to 8 weeks with a lat strain, and I think this is relevant because, like I said, I think Eric Fedde probably makes a lot of sense for the Mets. They have Kodai Senga at the top of the rotation. Clay Holmes is being converted into a starting pitcher. We'll see how that goes. Griffin Canning has had some injuries. But we'll kind of be tracking those pitcher injuries, and if Eric Fedde makes sense for those teams, I think this does. And the Mets have some prospects that would be worth seeking. I don't think you're going to get a franchise altering prospect for Eric Fedde, but I think it makes a lot of sense to move him.
You should get something pretty good though. A
Yeah,
low 3 ERA type guy for a full year for $7.5 million. Like,
not bad.
that it's hard to argue there's a better like investment. That said, the Mets don't care about money.
Yeah,
So you're not necessarily it's not going to be as valuable to them as, like, say, the Detroit Tigers or something like that.
right. And one final point of news is the Guardians owner, Larry Dolan, passes away at 94. His kids had taken over primary control of that team for the past handful of years, but We'll see if they decide to sell the team, if they hold on to it. They are some of the least wealthy owners in baseball. So it'd make a lot of sense for them to go make $1 billion or two and move on. But um, yeah, I don't really have any opinions about Larry Dolan, but
Yeah.
he is gone now.
I don't know much about the guy. So RIP to a real one. And hopefully the franchise if it does get new owners, hopefully they're good.
Yeah. All right. That's all I got for league news.
All right, Hambone, we're going to wrap this one up. And been playing this game a lot lately, but I think it's been kind of fun and I like kind of challenging you with it. So we're returning to another edition of Who Is This Guy?
Let's do it.
You've been crushing it lately. I'm gonna see how this
smart.
one goes. Wow. All right, so if you are new to the show and have not heard about this game before, what happens is I have a list of clues about a Major League Baseball player who played at least one game for the St. Louis Cardinals at the Major League level. The clues start very vague and get increasingly specific. Ben has to make a guess after every single clue. Okay.
All right.
Ben, this player was born on August 7th, 1976.
76.
In Barranquilla, Colombia.
Barranquilla, Colombia. Colombia. Who is a Colombian player who has played for the Cardinals? Who is, what does that put him in his 40s? Oh, wait, maybe, no, he's older than that. I'm struggling with my head math. The only Colombian player, and I'm probably wrong on this, that I can think of off the top of my head that I think is generally in that age range is Octavio Dotel. I don't remember how to say his name, but I'm going to guess Dotel.
His name is Octavio Dotel, and that is incorrect.
Okay. Is he Colombian even? I don't know.
I don't know. I can look it up.
Well, you do, yeah.
Okay. No, you don't go on Baseball Reference right now.
Okay. Well, I'm looking up Dotel just really quick. Just
You're a cheater.
Right. And I'm wrong.
This whole game is
Dominican Republic.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. All right. In no particular order, this player played for the Reds, the Giants, the Tigers, the Red Sox, the Braves, the Marlins, and the St. Louis Cardinals.
Say that again.
This player played for the Reds, the Giants, the Tigers, the Red Sox, the Braves, the Cardinals, and the Marlins.
Oh, my God. Oh, geez. I have absolutely... Who played for that many teams? I mean, Octavio Dotel sounds even more right because he had so many...
Yeah.
So many teams he played for. So this guy he's out of the game. Played for 1 billion different teams. He is Colombian. I'm trying to think of a player. My mind goes like Edwin Jackson, but I didn't hear the Cubs, and obviously he's from the United States, so it's not him.
Yeah, your age range is pretty close. I don't know if you saw it when you were cheating, but Dotel was born in 73, so Dotel was a little older. But exact same sort of generation of players.
Yeah. Wow. Who played for that many teams and also for your St. Louis Cardinals? Nothing is coming to mind at all. Guessing this guy's a nobody. Wow. I have no Randy Wynn. I have no guess.
No, it is not him. You said Randy Wynn?
Yep.
It's a name I've not heard in a long time. Okay. Next clue. This player was in 1998 was traded by the Florida Marlins to the St. Louis Cardinals for Armando Almanza, Braden Looper, and Pablo Ozuna. Then, after the 2004 season, he was granted his free agency and then signed with the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, I did not know that this guy played for this many teams. He must I am very surprised to hear this. Edgar Renteria.
You got it. That is Edgar Renteria. Yep.
I am
Yeah.
totally shocked that did he just like skip around at the end of his career or something?
Basically.
I
Yeah.
don't
I mean,
remember
he
that
played.
at all.
Fun fact, I didn't remember this at all. He was the 2010 World Series MVP.
Yeah, I do remember that.
That
Yeah,
was my last
so
one.
after he left, so he started with the Marlins, he went to the Cardinals, and then it was Boston, Atlanta, Detroit, Giants, Cincinnati. I do not remember all of that jumping around.
Yeah, I had neither. So my last fact that I was going to give you, well, the very last one is that late career highlight of the 2010 World Series MVP. But was that he won the 2002, 2003 Gold Glove at shortstop. He's the last Cardinal to win at the shortstop position.
I don't think I would have got that. I don't remember that.
So, yeah. All right. Well, Edgar Renteria. So you got it after 3 clues. Not too bad.
Yeah, that was okay.
Yeah. So that'll do it for this week's episode. So thank you all for listening. As always, we'll be back next week with more coverage of spring training games. It's going to be a big spring and a big year for the Cardinals. So thank you, everybody. Check out the Patreon. TalkingAboutBirds.com has all of our links. Tell your friends, tell your family. And until next week, go Cardinals. Oh, yeah. All right.
I got to go.